shadows over Manhattan. The city that never sleeps was restless tonight. For months, people had whispered about strange disappearances in the Lower East Side. Folks vanishing without a trace, with only the faintest clue left behind, a lingering scent of something metallic, and shadows that seemed darker than darkness itself. Emma, a freelance journalist chasing a story, couldn't resist. She moved to New York for its pulse, its energy, but tonight, as she walked down a narrow alley behind the old tenement buildings, she felt that pulse falter. The streetlights flickered erratically. A cold wind whispered through the cracked fire escapes, carrying faint voices, whispers she couldn't quite catch. She pulled her jacket tighter and kept moving, the heels of her boots clicking sharply against the pavement. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she saw it, a figure, tall and thin, with eyes that gleamed like coals, just beyond the reach of the streetlight's glow. When she blinked, it was gone. Emma's phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number, "Leave before it's too late." Her heart thundered as she quickened her pace, but the city seemed to warp around her. The alley stretched longer, darker. The shadows lengthened, creeping toward her. A chill ran down her spine as she heard footsteps behind her, slow and deliberate. No matter how fast she ran, the sound stayed steady, unwavering. She dared a glance back. Empty. Or was it? A cold breath brushed her neck. Emma screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the night. The shadows wrapped around her, pulling her into the darkness beneath the city streets, a place no one returned from. Part 2. The alley smelled of damp concrete and rotting garbage. Trash bags slumped against cracked brick walls, and rats scurried away as Emma's footsteps echoed softly. The air grew colder the deeper she went, and the city's usual hum of traffic and distant sirens faded into an unsettling silence. A flickering street lamp cast long, wavering shadows that twisted like living things. Emma's breath fogged the air, the cold seeping into her bones. She paused beside the boarded-up building, the one the missing person, a young man named Marcus, had been last seen near. The faded graffiti on the wooden planks read, "Don't look back." A shiver ran down her spine. Emma raised her camera and snapped a few pictures, the flash briefly illuminating the dark corners. Then she heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible, carried on the wind. Emma. Her name, drawn out like a hiss. She froze. "Who's there?" she called, voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. No answer. Her eyes darted to the far end of the alley where shadows pooled thick and black. Something moved, just a flicker, a pulse of darkness shifting against the brick. Emma swallowed her fear and stepped forward. Suddenly, a cold hand grasped her wrist. She gasped, spinning around. No one was there. But the pressure lingered, like an invisible grip squeezing tight. "Stop," the whisper came again, more urgent this time. Emma yanked her arm free and ran. Her boots pounded against the pavement as she sprinted toward the street, desperate to escape the suffocating shadows that seemed to chase her every step. Reaching the light of Ludlow Street, she stopped and gasped for breath. The city's noise rushed back, honking horns, distant laughter, footsteps on pavement. The normal world, impossibly far away from what she had just experienced. But when she checked her camera, the last photo, the one taken of the boarded-up building, wasn't there. Instead, the screen showed a black frame, with two glowing red dots staring back at her. Emma's blood ran cold. Part 3. Emma's fingers trembled as she stared at the screen. Two glowing red dots, unblinking, piercing the blackness. She tapped the photo, but it wouldn't open. Instead, her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "You shouldn't have come here." Her heart pounded louder than the city's distant roar. She scanned the street, half expecting to see someone lurking just beyond the glow of the streetlights. But the sidewalks were empty except for a stray cat that darted between trash cans. She shoved the phone into her pocket and took a shaky breath. She needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere with people. As she turned toward the corner, a sudden movement caught her eye. Across the street, in the shadows beneath a fire escape, a figure crouched, watching her. tall and thin, draped in a tattered coat that seemed to swallow the dim light. Emma blinked, and the figure was gone. She swallowed hard and hurried into a nearby cafe, the bell jingling as she entered. Warm light, the murmur of quiet conversations, the smell of coffee, it was a refuge from the night. She settled in a corner booth, pulling out her laptop and phone. She started typing furiously, piecing together everything she'd heard about the disappearances. Every missing person vanished near the same patch of Lower East Side. Witnesses reported strange sounds at night, and sightings of shadowy figures that moved against the flow of light. Emma's mind raced. Were these disappearances connected to something supernatural? A creature? A curse? Her phone buzzed again. This time a photo message. Emma's breath caught. It was a blurry image of her sitting in the cafe, taken from outside, through the rain-speckled window. Beneath it, the message read, "We see you. Part 4. Emma's fingers froze above the keyboard. The photo was grainy, but unmistakable. She was there, alone at the cafe, eyes glued to her screen. How had someone gotten so close? She glanced toward the window, half expecting to see a face pressed against the glass, but all she saw was the rain softly streaking down. Her heart hammered in her chest as the cafe door jingled again. A cold draft swept inside, carrying the faintest scent of iron, like blood. A man stepped in, tall and gaunt, wearing a dark trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. His eyes, sharp and cold, scanned the room before landing on her. Emma's breath hitched. The man moved toward her table, voice low and gravelly. "You don't know what you're messing with." Emma stood, clutching her bag. "Who are you?" He hesitated, then pulled back his hat, revealing a face pale as moonlight, with dark circles shadowing hollow eyes. "They call me Gabriel," he said. "And you need to leave. Now." She shook her head, heart pounding. "Why? What's happening in the Lower East Side? Who, or what, is behind the disappearances?" Gabriel's gaze darkened. "Shadows that hunger. Ancient things that slip between this world and the next. They're growing stronger, feeding on fear and loneliness." Emma's skin crawled. "How do I stop them?" He looked away, voice heavy. "You don't. Not yet. But you can survive. Follow me, if you want a chance." The cafe's chatter seemed to dim as the weight of his words sank in. Emma swallowed her fear and nodded. Outside, the rain had stopped. But the city felt colder, darker, as if the night itself was watching. Part 5. Gabriel led Emma through twisting backstreets and forgotten subway tunnels, places most New Yorkers never saw, or dared to enter after dark. The air grew heavier, thick with a damp, earthy smell that made Emma's throat tighten. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Gabriel glanced over his shoulder. "Because I've lost people to them. Friends, family. We all have a price here." They stopped before a rusted metal door set into a graffiti-covered wall. Gabriel produced an old key from his coat pocket and unlocked it. A faint, sickly green glow spilled out from inside. Emma hesitated but stepped in. The room was vast. A hidden chamber carved from the city's foundation, walls covered with ancient symbols and strange runes that pulsed with an eerie light. "This is a sanctuary," Gabriel explained. "A place to fight back. But it's not enough. The shadows are spreading." A sudden chill swept through the room, and Emma felt the temperature drop sharply. From the darkness, a low growl emerged. Shapes moved in the shadows, elongated forms with glowing red eyes. The air filled with a wet, scraping sound. Emma's heart slammed in her chest. She grabbed Gabriel's arm. "What are those?" "Hunters," he said grimly. "They track fear, feed on the lost. You've been marked now." A shadow lunged from the darkness, and Emma screamed. Part 6. Emma's scream cut through the stale air as the shadow lunged, its form flickering between solid and mist. Gabriel reacted instantly, pulling a small vial from his coat pocket and shattering it on the ground. A brilliant blue light exploded, illuminating the chamber and causing the shadow to recoil with a shriek that echoed like metal scraping bone. Emma stumbled back, eyes wide in terror. Gabriel's voice was steady but urgent. "These creatures fear light. It's their weakness." The hunters retreated into the deeper darkness, but Emma could still feel their malevolent presence lurking, waiting. "Why me?" she gasped. "Why am I marked?" Gabriel's face grew grave. "You have a rare gift, an ability to pierce the veil between our world and theirs. That's why the shadows want you. And why you need to fight back." Emma's mind raced. "How?" Gabriel reached into his coat and pulled out an ancient, leather-bound book. Its pages flickered with strange symbols and sketches of shadowy beasts. "This is the grimoire of the lost. It holds the knowledge we need to understand and banish them." Emma took the book, feeling its strange energy thrumming beneath her fingertips. Outside, the city's distant sirens wailed, but here, in the sanctuary, a deeper battle was beginning. Part 7. Emma flipped open the grimoire's cover, the worn leather cracking softly. The pages were filled with strange, curling letters and intricate drawings, symbols she didn't recognize but somehow felt instinctively drawn to. Gabriel's voice cut through the quiet. "These are the rites of warding and binding. They can protect you, if you have the will." Emma's eyes scanned a passage titled "The Ritual of the Hollow Light." The instructions described a ceremony to summon a protective flame strong enough to banish shadows, but the ritual required rare ingredients: ashes from a burned candle blessed in holy water, the feather of a night bird, and a circle drawn with salt from the Dead Sea. "How am I supposed to find all this in the city?" Emma asked. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. "We'll have to search. But be warned, the shadows will try to stop you. They feed on fear, and desperation will make you vulnerable." Determined, Emma closed the book and nodded. "Then we start now." As they stepped back into the labyrinthine tunnels beneath Manhattan, the weight of unseen eyes pressed against her skin. Every whisper of wind seemed to carry secrets and warnings. The city above was alive, but here, in the bowels of its ancient foundation, something old and terrible stirred. Emma's journey had only just begun, and the shadows were already closing in. Part 8. The first stop was an abandoned church tucked between crumbling brownstones in the East Village. Moonlight spilled through shattered stained glass, casting fractured colors onto the dusty pews. Emma's flashlight beam wavered as she searched for the ashes of a candle blessed in holy water, a relic from a long-forgotten vigil. Her heart pounded with each step. "Do you really think this place is safe?" Emma whispered. Gabriel shook his head. "Safe doesn't exist here. Only necessary." As they reached the altar, a sudden chill filled the air. Shadows gathered at the edges of the room, writhing like smoke. Emma gasped as a pair of glowing red eyes appeared just beyond the veil of darkness. The hunters were near. Gabriel raised his hand, chanting words from the grimoire. A shimmering barrier of light pulsed from his fingertips, pushing the shadows back. Emma hurried to the altar, where a scorched candle lay in a silver holder. She carefully collected the ashes into a small vial. The hunters retreated with furious howls, but the warning was clear: the shadows were watching. Next was the feather of a night bird, the elusive owl rumored to nest in the park near the Brooklyn Bridge. Emma's quest had only just begun, and the city's night was growing darker. Part 9. The night air by the Brooklyn Bridge was thick with fog, swirling around the steel cables like restless spirits. Emma's footsteps were muffled by the damp leaves littering the ground. The city's distant hum faded to a whisper, replaced by the occasional hoot of an owl. Gabriel led her toward a cluster of ancient trees, their branches clawing at the sky. "The owl nests here," he whispered. "But be careful. The shadows are drawn to life." Emma's eyes scanned the darkness, searching for movement. Suddenly, a flash of white caught her attention, a feather drifting slowly to the ground. She reached out and caught it, heart racing. But before she could celebrate, a cold breeze swept through the trees, carrying a low, guttural growl. From the shadows, the hunters emerged, silent and deadly, their red eyes burning with hunger. Emma gripped the feather tight as Gabriel stepped forward, raising the vial of ashes and chanting a protective spell. The hunters hissed and recoiled, but they didn't retreat far. "Hold on," Gabriel said, "we need to move, now." The fog thickened as they sprinted back toward the sanctuary, the hunters in relentless pursuit. Emma's pulse thundered as she clutched the feather, knowing the final ingredient awaited, and the true battle was just beginning. Part 10. The final ingredient, the salt from the Dead Sea, was the hardest to obtain. Gabriel explained that the salt wasn't ordinary, it had to be gathered from a sacred vial kept in a hidden museum exhibit in Queens, locked away for decades. Under the cover of night, they navigated the labyrinth of subway lines and back alleys until they reached the unmarked entrance to the museum's underground vault. The air was thick with dust and silence, broken only by the echo of their footsteps. Emma's flashlight flickered as they moved deeper, the walls lined with ancient artifacts, remnants of civilizations long lost. At the center stood a glass case containing the vial of Dead Sea salt, glowing faintly with a blue-green light. Gabriel knelt, producing a small cloth and carefully uncorking the vial. Suddenly, the shadows surged, a wall of darkness crashing toward them. Emma felt a cold grip clutch her ankle, nearly pulling her down. "Stay focused," Gabriel shouted, tossing a handful of ashes from the blessed candle. Blue flames erupted, forcing the shadows back. Emma scrambled to her feet, clutching the vial as they raced back to the sanctuary. "We have what we need," Gabriel said, breathless but resolute. Emma felt the weight of the grimoire in her bag and the ritual's promise: light against darkness, hope against fear. Tonight, the shadows would face their reckoning. Part 11. Back in the sanctuary, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Emma arranged the ashes, the owl feather, and the Dead Sea salt in a circle on the cracked stone floor. The grimoire lay open before her, its ancient script glowing faintly in the dim light. Gabriel began chanting, his voice a low rumble that filled the chamber. Emma followed, repeating the incantations, feeling a strange power coursing through her veins. Outside, the shadows gathered. Restless, angry, and growing bolder. A sudden blast of cold air swept through the room as dark forms pressed against the glowing circle, claws scraping the edges. Emma's heart thundered, but she held her ground, focusing on the light flickering from the vial of ashes. The shadows shrieked and writhed, trying to break through. Then, with a burst of brilliant flame, the ritual ignited. Light poured outward, burning away the darkness like a cleansing fire. One by one, the shadowy forms dissolved, their red eyes dimming into nothingness. When the last flicker vanished, silence returned. Emma collapsed, breathless but victorious. Gabriel looked at her with a rare softness. "You did it. You brought the light." But as they exited the sanctuary, Emma glanced back to the city skyline, still alive, still restless. The shadows might have been driven back tonight, but the city's darkness was never truly gone. Part 12. The first rays of dawn seeped through cracked windows of the sanctuary as Emma and Gabriel emerged into the cold morning air. The city stirred awake, honking cars, joggers on the sidewalks, and the distant rumble of the subway. Emma's limbs ached, but her mind raced. The ritual had worked, at least for now, but the fear still clung to her like a second skin. Gabriel's eyes scanned the skyline. This city, it never truly rests. The shadows are part of it, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for nightfall. Emma nodded slowly. "So, what now? Do we just wait?" He shook his head. "We prepare. We watch. And we fight, every time the darkness tries to creep back." A chill wind swept through the streets, carrying the faintest whisper, a reminder that the battle was far from over. As Emma turned to leave, her phone buzzed once more. A new message appeared. "This isn't over. We're always watching." Emma swallowed hard but squared her shoulders. Whatever was out there, she wouldn't run. Not anymore.